I gave him a D, you gave him a D. Mid-season, he got a D. He didn't quite have the same highs as his teammate, but he did enough to convince Red Bull to keep him in the lineup for next season at the very least, did Liam?
Yeah, I think it does need to be commended that Liam Lawson was able to keep going this season despite not only a horrific start with his new team, but then getting dropped after two races and being just in that. It must have been really difficult to try and bounce back. And he didn't have the best of bounce backs when he started back in Racing Bulls, but as the season went on, he did start to get some better finishes, started scoring some really good points, and got these performances which I think really saw his confidence get back. I think the reason why we're not going to give him as high as a score as Hadjar this season is because purely inconsistency. While Lawson did get good points, he didn't get them nearly as consistently, and he wasn't quite on the level that Hadjar was this season. He usually lost out. But I think it's very fair to give him a higher grade than Yuki. At the end of the day, he scored more championship points than Yuki did. And I think Lawson should walk away and be satisfied with the fact that he really did manage to pull his season round to the point where it looked like he could have been completely out of F1, but he's definitely there for next season. And let's see how he faces against another rookie teammate and see if he's going to be better than Lindblad. And if not, maybe we'd see the end of Liam Lawson. But yeah, I a D. It wasn't. I think had he stayed in Red Bull and continued to get points, he would be in the higher. But if you're getting dropped out of a team, you're never going to really get a C, are you?
No, I mean, like for a C, really, like you kind of have to have had a pretty average season, and I don't think, it was an average season for Liam Lawson. Dropping him after two races might have been a bit harsh, maybe get a bit further into the season, but Red Bull have the data to say Liam Lawson's performances are trending downwards. We'll swap him over, and then, his performances at the very least might stabilize in a more steady car. Yuki Tsunoda was clearly the more experienced driver, but Red Bull didn't make that decision at the start of the year. But, as you say, a very good point about Liam Lawson being able to bounce back. We saw Danny Kvyat get dropped and it crushed his season. We saw Pierre Gasly get dropped and it crushed his season. We saw Alex Albon, I believe, get dropped potentially at the end of the season. At that point, I think it was.
Yeah,
But, you
it was
know,
the end.
Alex Albon just like in that like postseason looked like an absolute shell of himself at that point, and that's what the Red Bull second seat seems to do to drivers. But if you do at least bounce back, it gives you that opportunity, and we're seeing that in Alex Albon over in Williams, and who knows, we might see that in any of the other drivers. Should they make it out of that Red Bull stable further down the line. We'll
It's
move on
definitely a
to
healthier looking stable these days.
Absolutely. I mean, has we'll talk about Isaac Hadjar later. In fact, I won't do that now, but there is certainly something to be said for that stable.